It's really exciting right now. Maine's First Ship and the Freight Shed Alliance are joining forces.
It's kind of silly, I guess, to have essentially two organizations, two non-for-profit organizations running the same thing. Why not come together?
On March 18, 2017, members of Maine's First Ship voted to merge with the Bath Freight Shed Alliance.
All in favor of the proposal, Gregor? Opposed?
Although the Freight Shed Alliance is being absorbed, it leaves an important legacy.
I thought it'd be great to tell the story to give other communities encouragement. If you just tackle a little bit at a time, you can do a lot.
This chapter for the Freight Shed began in 2009.
So in 2009, we had our architecture practice in the Customs House, and we saw this building falling into the ground. And we called a meeting at Main Street Bath, bringing together stakeholders at the time. And we got a very enthusiastic response, and part of that team were people from the Bath Farmers Market and Main Street Bath, obviously, and then the Downtown Association.
The Theodore's Bowdoin students took the idea on as a project, researching and creating concept drawings.
And then come the spring, the students presented, and that June, we walked in this far door, and lo and behold, Maine's First Ship was in here building boats. I didn't know it was going to be boat building in here.
She basically came to Maine's First Ship and said, "This is amazing that you guys are starting to do this, and I'm interested in helping you guys out, but mainly I'm interested in conserving the property that you're using." And at the time, there were trees, literally trees growing through the floorboards.
Very dim, very dark, except where the light came in through the holes in the ceiling.
We had rain days for boat building because it was unsafe to use power tools with the kids.
Do you remember the first, I don't know, if you remember like in the beginning when we were here in the winter?
Oh my gosh, you were like wearing coveralls.
Yeah.
Like boots and like headbands.
But the energy of the building is really amazing and the history. So people were excited that we were here.
The big thing that got this project underway was the Kickstarter campaign. None of this would have happened without the farmers market. So the roof, the lighting happened once the farmers market signed on.
It's been great having the farmers market here. It really brings a lot of traffic to the ship in the winter, which is when the tourists aren't here so much. So that's actually been very helpful in keeping the community aware of what we're doing and keeping up with the progress of the build.
Although the organizational structure will be simplified, the mission and function of the Freight Shed Alliance will be carried forward by Maine's First Ship.
We'll have a permanent representative from the farmers market on the First Ship board, which will be able to voice for the farmers market.
And then the Freight Shed Alliance is basically going to become more of a committee.
My hope is that we'll continue the farmers market during the wintertime, and then we'll also continue to have a permanent home for the Maine's First Ship, continue to have some programming for students under traditional skills, carpentry, boat building, but also diversify and have potentially more events like weddings and more dinners like Vivka's done in the past with the full moon dinners.
The story of the Freight Shed illustrates how collaboration between organizations and across categories can bear surprising fruits.
These meals, these dinners turned into building materials right away. So the floor that you're on is from Higmo's Lumber. They milled it. We installed this section for Eric Varney's wedding. We had got this done for Eric's wedding. And I'll tell you, architecturally and spatially, I think that the lighting that is because of Christy and Eric has made the biggest transformation in how it feels in here.
This was all cleared out and we had long tables, and it was just exactly what we wanted. It was perfect.
The Celt concert was lovely. Nancy Spera, who also played, is hoping to do some more music like that on a more regular basis.
There's a potential to do it in the summertime when it's not filled with the farmers market stuff. We'd have a featured performer. We'd have open mic slots before the featured performer. So it'd be sort of a once a month night of local music.
Oh, I know, that's what I was thinking of. So the Kickstarter, one of my favorite stories with that was our top reward was a dinner for 50 people. Mark and Luann got that one. They ended up donating their dinner to the Bath Food Bank. So we ended up, instead of giving them a dinner for 50, we made a dinner for 150 people and raised several $1,000s for the Bath Food Pantry. This was perfect. I bring that up also as this idea of collaborating. So together with Maine's First Ship, when we have the market here, it's all that much better. There are relationships that are formed that come about because of these different activities coming together. The other thing we've done here that's been a lot of fun is trading use of the space for help. So the Y has had several events here, and then instead of paying for the space, they just come over and volunteer. And I love our groups swapping time and resources, so we don't have to duplicate what we do. We can support each other.
I teach at Morse High School as well, and so trying to get more students involved with local food.
Working with the culinary arts, they've been amazing. All of this electrical work was done by the Bath Career Technical Services. It may not happen as fast, but if you can involve students at every step, it's a blessing.
Both the Freight Shed Alliance and Maine's First Ship have grown through strong community participation.
There is a father and daughter who were just in town from Portland. She was actually studying architecture, and they just walked in the door, and we were, making those chalkboards, and they said, well, could we help for a little while? And so they stayed for a couple of hours, and we had such a good time together. And I know that that will have an impact on her. Can you imagine as a stranger just going into a building and, ending up, painting a chalkboard? We really wanted this to be a place for food that was accessible for the whole community, that this building would be affordable for people. So for example, when we brought the EBT back, it was so that the food would be affordable here. We wanted to make this inclusive. So it was not just about a preservation project. So the fact that it is a rustic barn, it's really rough around the edges, makes it a place that is very welcoming. You don't have to be fancy here.
I love the building. I love the history to the building.
The work of Bowdoin students uncovered the role that the freight shed played in Bath's history.
This was the connection between goods coming by rail and going then by horse-drawn carriage. It's really a crossroads.
It'd be great to see some of Viveka's landscaping ideas take shape.
This whole facade will open up. There are parts of that sidewalk that are 14 feet deep, so bike racks hanging out there. It will have a kind of urban feel, and it'll be a social space that ties into the building, and there'll be a river walk that connects with the park.
The interest in the community is one of the biggest differences. We've done a lot of structural stuff. A lot of it you can't really completely tell.
So the new doors and windows above the doors have been amazing, but I think that continuing improvements on the building so that it is more comfortable. It's comfortable now, but when it's sub-zero outside, it's definitely a challenge being in here. It's a challenge for our produce too.
The sidings. Once we get the sidings done, it'll really close it.
Moving forwards, the Freight Shed Committee, under Maine's First Ship, will continue to rely on the support of community members.
Once an organization has been in place in a while and the market's been here now for several years, sometimes the momentum isn't as intense as when we had the Kickstarter and people start taking things for granted, and we're a small community, so there's a lot of demand on volunteer time. And so if we really like something, we need to continue to participate in the process. And with the Freight Shed, for example, it's so easy. A few hours makes a huge difference.
The structure obviously is old and still needs some help and still needs financial help and volunteer help. But to see where we started from and what we have now, it's absolutely amazing. And I think that we have less of a distance to go than what we've already accomplished, and that's promising to me.